Hello and welcome to our show. It's called Pro Advice. And really, I have pro in our business life, our attorney, Bart Strock from Strock and Cohen Zipper Law Group. And let's hear from him how long he's in the business, what does he do. One thing I'll tell you, he is very, very, very helpful. During my over 20 years of real estate business, I know him. He's always a help for myself, my colleagues, and the clients. Our client can reach him anytime with any kind of real estate problem. He has the answer. He has the solution. So Bart, welcome to the show, Pro Advice.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Very glad to be here.
So Bart, let's hear from you about your real estate attorney business or helping people. How long you are doing this? Where is the office? All the details.
So I am a partner in SCZ Real Estate Law, which is also Strock and Cohen Zipper Law Group, and Safekey Title and Closings. The three of us own both of those. And we are a 4-attorney law firm. We have another attorney in the law firm that handle all aspects of real estate law. Contract negotiations, landlord-tenant, foreclosure defense, anything having to do with real estate. We also represent buyers and sellers. Safekey Title handles all the closings, commercial and residential, that come through the firm. That's where the title insurance is written through that. I've been doing this for over 40 years. I've been practicing law here in South Florida. I know I don't look that old. I certainly don't act my age, but they were telling me that when I was a lot younger. I love what I do. Our attorney, we're not a one-man show. It's 4 attorneys. It's a support staff of 10. When someone goes on vacation, your case goes on, your deal gets processed. Most of our employees are bilingual, so we cover a wide range of clientele. I personally have clients that speak only Spanish, and I don't speak a word of Spanish, but my paralegal does all the translating. She knows all the terminology, and it works well. Some of our lawyers are bilingual also.
Okay, very good to know. And over 40 years, that's a lot of good experience here.
It's good experience, but I still learn something new every single day.
Yeah, that's the attitude. Yeah. Now, Bart, one of the questions we always get, especially from the buyers and the sellers, that what is closing cost? What does really it include? So let's go with the buyer first. So what are the things involved in the closing cost?
Okay, so there is no absolute legal definition of what closing costs are. It really depends upon what part of the country you're in, what the customs are there, but the buyer could expect to pay the following costs. So if the buyer is financing the deal, taking out a note and mortgage, the buyer is going to pay the taxes and recording fees on the notes and mortgage. When I say taxes, I mean to record a mortgage in the state of Florida, you have to pay documentary stamp tax and intangible tax on those documents in order to record that document, okay? Then the buyer is going to pay the recording fees for the deed, which is really not inexpensive. It's $10 for the first page and $8.50 for each page thereafter. The average deed is 2 pages. The buyer is not paying the recording tax, the documentary stamp tax like there is on the mortgage. They're not paying that on the deed. That's traditionally paid by the seller. The buyer is going to pay the title insurance fees costs for both the lender's and the owner's policy. Those are fees set by law. A title insurance agent can charge any fee above the minimum fee that they would like. They just must charge the minimum fee. Our firm only charges the minimum fee. We never add a penny to it. There are endorsements to those policies that lenders require, that most of the endorsements have a $25 charge, and there are many title agencies that charge up to $250 on those. They pack it in. We charge the minimum fee on everything. I don't consider it a closing cost, but the buyer is going to pay for the survey. Now, a lender, there's no survey on a condominium, but on all other properties, they can be. A lender will always require a survey, and then it's optional, according to the contract, it's optional with the buyer on a non-financed property, on a cash sale, but I always recommend it. I don't make money on the survey, but you need to know what you're buying. Sometimes we can get by without it if we get a copy of a survey that's not too old from the seller, and we can make a determination that there is nothing that has changed. The buyer is going to pay for the transfer fees for the homeowners or condominium association. Sometimes there's $100 or so transfer fee. I think it's limited by state law to $100. In certain counties in Florida, the buyer is going to pay for the municipal lien search, and in Dade and Broward, where we are, the buyer is not going to pay for it. The seller will pay for it. Okay. Seller will also pay for the title search in Miami-Dade and Broward County. Any of the loan expenses, we don't know what those are. We never know what they are until really the date of closing. But right up front, when you make an application, within 3 days, the lender is required to provide you with a disclosure, used to be called a good faith estimate, of all of the loan closing costs. If the lender doesn't give you an accurate estimate, they may wind up eating the difference, paying for it. The bank is going to have appraisal fees that they're going to charge to the borrower if there's a loan involved. The buyer is also going to pay for their inspections. I guess they're running now between $350 and $450 for an inspection. Always use a good one. Trust your agent to recommend someone that they've worked with before. If the buyer has attorney's fees, they're going to pay them themselves. However, if they're using our title company, Safekey Title and Closings, it's attorney run, and where we make sure that everything is right for everybody. Buyer is going to pay for their insurance, whatever that is, that's pretty much the list.
That's very good. That's actually mostly for the buyers. Now, another thing also comes with the closing cost, and we always have that question, the prepaid. So can you just, it's not really a cost, but can you just explain a little bit in details what are the prepaid?
That's my favorite explanation. I love that because I get to count on my fingers. So prepays. First of all, when you take out a loan, a federally insured loan, which is almost every loan we deal with, the first payment on that loan is going to be due on the first day of the month following the first full month following the closing. So if you close today on January the 20th, the first full month is February. So your first payment will not be due until March the 1st. When you pay your March 1st payment, that will include the February interest, because on a loan, on a federally insured loan, the lender is not allowed to charge interest in advance ever, except at the time of closing. So if you're paying the February interest with the March 1st payment, then the interest from today, the date of closing, January 20th through January 31st, has to be paid. You're not going to get a bill on February 1st. So you pay that upfront today. It's called prepaid interest. It's the only time in a loan that you could pay prepaid interest. The amount of it depends upon what day of the month you close. So that if your interest on your loan is, I don't know, $100,000 loan, and it's, let's make it up a number, 5%, so it's $5,000 a year divided by 365, and you get the daily interest rate. So I'm just saying it's $10 a day, it's actually more. But I'm just using $10 as an example. So if you close today, that's 11 days to the end of the month that you're using that money, so you're going to pay $110. If you closed on the 3rd of the month, you're going to pay about $280. In the old days, every realtor was trained to close on the last day of the month because that was the day you paid the least amount of prepaid interest. Unfortunately, a lot of realtors remember that, and they still automatically do that. But what happens is the closing agent, the title company, the law firm, is the busiest on the last day of the month. The lender is besides themselves trying to close deals on the last day of the month, especially since the new rules went into effect several years ago with the closing disclosures that have to be done in advance. So you get the absolute worst service on those days if you're closing on the last day of the month. The second worst day to close is the 1st of the month, because all the deals that didn't close on the last day of the month because the lender couldn't get them out go to the next day. The 15th day is the next worst day. The Fridays are worse because people think they can move all weekend. Well, in most cases, so this all started when you had a lot of FHA and VA loans where it was advertised $500 down, you pay not a penny more. And all the people had was $500. So if they had to pay more than 1 day's prepaid interest, they couldn't close. You can't qualify for a loan like that anymore. Most people have sufficient. You have a doctor that's buying a $3 million house. Why would you put him to close on the last day of the month where he's going to get the worst service in the world? He'd rather be in his house as early as possible, get the best service, be treated like a king. Maybe even the closing agent will come to his office and sign there because there's time. Last day of the month, no one could leave the office. Don't even get to have lunch. So that's prepaid interest. Then the second thing in prepaids is tax escrow and insurance escrow. So when you have an escrow, the lender is paying your taxes and insurance for you. You don't have to pay it out of pocket. Of course, they're not paying it out of their pocket. Each month with your payment, you're paying an escrow payment for taxes and insurance, which is 1/12 of the estimated taxes and insurance for the year. So that each month you pay your 12th. At the end of the year, the lender has 12 twelfths, and they can make the payment for you. And this way, they're sure it's paid. The problem is I'm closing today, January 20th. My insurance is going to be due next year on January 20th. My first payment isn't due until March the 1st. So the lender is only going to have 10 months of payments to pay my insurance come January 20th of next 2021. So the lender is going to charge me today at closing 3 months of insurance payments, monthly payments, so that we comply with the federal law that says they're getting the 2 months they're due because they're going to need it at the end, and they're allowed to keep a 1 month cushion, okay, in case anything happens. Because remember, they're going to get that bill not on January 20th. They're going to get it on December 20th and probably pay it the same day it comes in. Taxes are even a little different because the taxes in Florida are due November 1st. They come due, and the lender is required with an escrow to pay it during the month of November. So if they only had 10 months for insurance, when the November tax bill comes, they're only going to have 8 months.
Yeah.
So the lender is going to charge you at closing for 4 months, 4 months of taxes, and plus a 1 month cushion. So that's your prepaids on the escrow. And then there is a formula that they're not allowed to take too much and that's called, I can't remember what it's called right now, but there is a formula for a credit, because actually they could use some of one tax bill for insurance and insurance for tax. So, but that's a good approximation of what it is, prepaids.
So that's
the
good.
best explanation you've ever heard of that, Sean?
No, I love it. See, clarification is the best way to educate our client. And this is you explain very nice way, because a lot of time people they don't understand that, oh my God, I'm paying this much money for the prepaid, and it's actually they're just holding it in the escrow account. It's not just we are paying.
When they don't understand that, I say, okay, your first payment is March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. They only have 10 months. That's it.
Right.
And I never need 11 fingers, because it's always 2 months later that first payment is due. I always have enough fingers.
No, that's a very good way to explain. Now, let's go to the seller side. You did explain a couple of things, but let's go a little bit in details. When someone is selling a home, what are the basic, the things are included on the closing cost?
For the seller? So
yes.
In all of Florida, the standard contract says that the seller will pay the documentary stamps due at the closing. So that is 70 cents per hundred, $7 per thousand. You sell a $100,000 house, that's a $700 documentary stamps, and it goes all the way up. Okay, that's a seller's expense. Limiting myself right now to Miami-Dade and Broward counties, okay, because there are separate rules for them on closing costs. The seller is going to pay for the title search, about $200, and the seller is going to pay for the lien search, about $350, depending upon the county and the municipality.
The HOA, if there's a...
The seller is going to pay the estoppel fee to the HOA or condo association. Estoppel fee is, we need a letter from you telling us that all payments are paid, that the next payment due is this amount, and it is due on this date. After a certain date, there's a late fee, and there are no violations of any of the governing documents of the association. Okay, and that costs $250. By state law, they can't charge more. But as I was reading a whole blog on yesterday, a whole listserv, some of these companies manage to add junk fees to that, and they get it up more. So it's not worth fighting right now.
Yeah.
Every year, the attorneys petition the legislature to make corrections to that statute.
Okay. Those are good to know. So Bart, thank you very much.
Oh, wait, we have two more expenses for the seller.
Okay, go ahead.
And that is that the seller is going to pay to record any documents to cure title. So if the seller's wife died and it transfers automatically to the husband, then we have to record the death certificate and an affidavit, and the seller will pay their own attorney's fees.
Okay. Yes.
And that's it.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Now, one of the things I like to clarify, seller will have to pay a title company. A lot of time what happened, the buyer picked the title company, and then seller have to pay that anyway. So for our seller, we provide them the service from Strock and Cohen, and it's the same cost. There's no extra expense for an attorney service. Is that did I explain right?
That's correct. So what happens is under the contract, the seller is required to present certain documents at closing. In Broward and Miami-Dade counties, the buyer has selected the closing agent, and that closing agent is beholden to not even the buyer, but the buyer's agent, who constantly refers business to them. And so that's who they're going to be catering to. And no one is watching out for the seller. So they're going to charge the seller about $795 to prepare those seller's documents.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
then you come to us and say, will you prepare the seller's documents? Well, no, I will not just prepare the seller's documents, because who knows what's going to happen or what's needed. We represent the seller. We do that for $850, which is just a couple of dollars more. We prepare all the documents. We check the contract. We coordinate the closing for the seller. Usually the seller can come to our office, sign the documents, and we deliver them. Most important, we check the closing statement. Probably 80% of the times we find mistakes, not intentional,
Right.
sometimes, but not mostly. I don't attribute that motive to anybody. We find mistakes that affect the seller more than the buyer. And we have saved sellers anywhere from $50 and more often up, $100, $1,500. We have found large errors in closing statements. All of our attorneys that review this have decades of experience. And so we know what we're doing, and we show closing agents, especially non-attorney owned title companies, we show them where they're doing it wrong. We teach them. But meanwhile, we've saved the seller a fortune. So
yeah, this is very important, because as a seller, I don't want to sell a home and then a month later something coming up in the mail that I still owe money, or what are you saying of the lien search? Sometimes I know some of the story that the title company, or from the city, there is some lien came off, and the sellers has to pay at the closing. But then when you guys from the Strock and Cohen did the research on that, and then seller didn't have to pay that was cleared, or some paperwork was not done by the city on certain cases. So it is always advised for a seller to hire an attorney like you guys, who are experienced, who know the job very well.
I supervise the litigation department in our law firm. So I see all these cases that closed by someone else, or the buyer or seller was represented by other attorneys, and all the mistakes that are made.
Right.
And, we immediately check our systems, make sure our protocols are such that this is not going to happen to us when we see it from someone else, and constantly handling those legal battles to get the seller what they were due.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very, very good to know. Actually, the purpose of this video is let people know the inside story. A lot of time, the knowledge is power always.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks, Bart. You actually went very, very details on it, and I really loved the explanation you gave. Thanks for joining, and we definitely want you back another time with some other subject, because there's a different subject on the real estate law. So
call my agent and book me.
So thank you, Bart. Thanks for joining, and then we'll catch up in another episode. Appreciate all the feedback, all the sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.